have a special treat for you today. We have Judy and Riley Covin with us to share some of their life. And as you remember, September is our Stewardship Month. And so each Sunday, we have a moment where we share with some of our faith family what it means to support our church and love our church and be faithful as members. So I'd like to ask this first question. Judy and Riley, what have you been up to the last 6 months?
Well, the first 3 months, we had my 102-year-old mother living with us. And so that made for a little different lifestyle for us. But it was good to have her there during that time. But after 3 months, she was able to go back home with her caregivers. Riley and I, in the meantime, found that we had to do things a little differently. I began grocery shopping about 7 o'clock in the mornings to try to avoid being in the store with a lot of folks. And so that was different. And we found that outside time was really important to us, that we needed to have time outside.
All right. We always go walking first thing in the morning, unless it's raining, of course. and that's a benefit. And a lot of times we'll see neighbors out in the yard, and we get to interact with them, to ask how are you doing, and various kind of questions. And that's social importance to us. And then one benefit of this happening when it did is that was about the time we began planting the garden, planting things inside, first of all, to set out. And that has been a real benefit in having something active to do and being outside and feeling like you're accomplishing something. And that's, as I say, been a benefit, and as well as the interaction with our neighborhood. And really, in a sense, we became neighbors in a way we never have before because we shared more, actually, and saw each other more often. And so that's been a real benefit of this downtime. Now, coming up in the wintertime, when you have to stay inside, it may be a different question.
We have both been active. I'm active on the Western North Carolina Climate Action Coalition, and we have continued to meet by Zoom in small groups since this began. And so I've had interaction with people through the computer, and I'm also on the CE committee for the Presbytery, and we've had interaction on the computer. And Riley's also, he's in some...
Right. I belong to a lectionary group, a group of ministers in the Canton area that meet together once a week to talk about, discuss the lectionary text for the coming Sunday. And of course, most of them are preaching on one of these texts. I don't preach, but I enjoy getting together with them and sharing insights and hearing insights from them. And socially, that's been a benefit to me, as well as giving me the opportunity to talk about what it is that's important in life and what we believe as Christians.
I am totally impressed that you are both Zooming. That is awesome. I've also learned to Zoom and do things I never thought were possible. I can't say that I enjoy it, but we're so thankful for technology. We definitely are. So the next question for you is, what do you miss most about the church gathered?
Holly, I think the thing I miss most is what Lee was talking about, seeing the people, having some time to interact and find out what's going on in their lives, as well as maybe sharing a little of what's going on in our lives. But there's so interesting, such a bunch of interesting people in this church with all kinds of concerns and viewpoints, and I thoroughly enjoy being with them and sharing and hearing.
I think I have to say the same, that I've missed the people. But I've also missed the choir particularly, because I don't know if people outside the choir realize what a support group we are to each other, but we are. We have prayer together every choir practice before we leave. And we share concerns that we don't necessarily share outside. So I've particularly missed the choir and our Sunday school class. However, Paul Koptak has kind of kept us together with that. He sends out an email every Friday afternoon and says it's time for a check-in, and we all reply back to what we've been doing for the week or what kind of concerns we have. And that's been really neat because we've been able to keep up with each other in that class. So I've enjoyed that part. The other thing that I have to say is I never thought I could worship online, but we've been learning to do that. And we worship every Sunday morning. We don't always worship at 11 o'clock because a lot of times we like to worship before that time. And so we gather, Riley and I will gather together in front of the computer and have our worship service every Sunday morning. And I've also really enjoyed the midweek music that Diane's been putting together. I think that's been really special.
People participate in that Zoom, that worship service online. That's meaningful as well.
Share something you've learned about giving your time and your talents and your treasures.
Judy and I were talking about this last night. We both grew up with a family that was participating in worship, and I remember my father had become a Sunday school superintendent, and so he was very active, and my mother was active in the women's organization and so forth, and we always went to Sunday school, and so it just was part of our life. And in terms of stewardship, Judy and I both remember our parents giving us a quarter or some money to put in the offering plate, etc. So we grew up thinking that this was part of worship as well. And when we got married, we began tithing, knowing that this was a biblical example of giving. And the thing I remember about it is that I never regret what we gave away. Perhaps I only regretting we didn't give more. The tithing is just the beginning, in a sense. It's not a limit on how much you can give, but giving is a way of worship and is a way of helping others as well. And it's been meaningful to me, and I think to Judy as well.
It has. And I think once we give, we want to give more. I think we have to learn to give almost. And, one of the things that I thought about when we were talking about this yesterday is that in 2004, we had floods here in Haywood County. And I know Waynesville wasn't as affected, but we were in Canton, and Canton was very much affected. And I was chair of the missions committee for the Canton Church at that time. And I didn't particularly want to get involved with all that I knew needed to be done, but through the Lord's prodding and prodding from the presbytery office, I soon found myself really involved in this. But participating in that cleanup, and we housed work teams that came in there at our church, and participating in all of that made me want to be a work team and go help somebody else. And so when Katrina hit, Riley and I went with a group of 8 others from the presbytery. It was a small group, but we went to Biola Battery, Alabama, where they had 20 feet of water through their downtown. And we worked hard. I mean, it was physical labor. We worked really hard. But that was one of the best weeks, and the folks that went together on that little team, we're all still, we still feel very close today. And I think all of that is giving and serving together and making you want to do more when you've done that. It's such a rewarding feeling.
I think about my life as a minister. That's a way of serving, etc. And the most rewarding thing about being a minister is when somebody comes up to you that you knew years ago, and I've had that opportunity here since I came back to the very place where I started out. And occasionally somebody will come up to me and say to me, you know, you meant a lot to me when I was growing up, or etc. And that's the biggest gift anybody could ever give to me, knowing that I made a difference in somebody's life through my ministry. And I think the same thing is true of Sunday school teachers. I know how much they meant to me as I was growing up. And all those who serve in the church, who express interest in me and support me when I'd come back from college, want to know how I was doing, etc. They were my family. They were my support group, and that meant a lot to me.
I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for all the ways that you've served the Lord here in this place and are serving. Thank you for all the ways you've served in the community, and thank you for all the ways you've invested in lives along the way. We praise God for you.